3 is the magic number. The Mariners are well on their way to clinching their first playoff berth in 20 years this weekend, and if you're looking to be there in person, we'll tell you which day could be the day. This is the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Thursday, September 29th, 2022. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Paljon for the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description below. On the show today, will the Mariners be able to clinch on their own terms, or will the Orioles do it for them? We'll be talking about that. Plus, Jerry Dipoto made a comment about Luis Castillo's extension today that should excite Mariners fans. We're going to get into that a little bit later on. But Colby, yesterday we talked about how emotions are going to be up and down, up and down, up and down for the next, couple weeks. So maybe, disregard any takes that come from emotion. So I am here today to officially pivot and say the Mariners are going to win the World Series now that they have won a game again. So that's just what I'm doing. I'm sticking to that, and y'all can deal with it, basically. Mariners winning it all. They're going 12-0 in the postseason. Deal with it.
Yes. Let the record show that Colby is the one who stayed level-headed throughout this entire ordeal and didn't, exhibit some of the signs that you guys have often attributed to me as being a worrywart and not even liking this baseball team. It was actually I who stayed calm in rough waters, and Ty who tried to abandon ship before rebarnacling himself to the SS Mariner.
Also, it would be 13-0, right? You got to win 13 games in the postseason, right?
Yeah, you got to win
up
2,
as a wild card.
2, 3, 4, 4.
4, yep.
Yeah, so 13.
Yep, 13. So all jokes aside, though, the Mariners are back in the win column. They're 84-70. The Orioles lost last night, so the magic number is down to 3. And so the opportunity to clinch is right around the corner here. It could be literally any day starting tomorrow. Right now, as we're recording this, the Orioles and the Red Sox are playing their last game of their series, and it's 3-3. It was 3-2 Boston, but the Orioles just tied it up on a solo home run by Kyle Stowers. So we'll see how that goes. But the magic number could come down to 2. But the Mariners, it's starting to kind of look like the Orioles will be the one that ends up clinching for the Mariners instead of the Mariners themselves, because, the Orioles being on the East Coast, and they're going to be playing all these games on the East Coast, and the Mariners are going to be staying at home. The time difference just doesn't really work out for the Mariners here. So if the Orioles go, they lose their next 2 games, the Mariners win tonight, the Orioles will essentially clinch for the Mariners if they lose to the Yankees tomorrow night. So that is, not super ideal, but again, we will take it. We will take this any way that we can get it, of course. So not going to complain too much about that, but us, we are proponents of the Mariners being able to clinch themselves and celebrate on the field and celebrate with the fans there in the stands instead of everyone already knowing. I think that just would be a great moment. But for those that are trying to get to the ballpark now and trying to see this team and trying to see this team clinch its first playoff berth in over 20 years now, it's kind of hard to figure out what day to actually go. And Colby, you're even doing that yourself right now. You're trying to figure out what day to go. So from your perspective and just kind of what your strategy is, what should our listeners be looking for right now in terms of, especially for those that might only have one shot to go? What day do you think is maybe the safest to aim for here? Because to me, there's no day that's safe. It could happen at any time, and we don't know how if the Orioles are going to be able to beat the Red Sox today. We don't know if the Orioles are going to be able to beat the Yankees tomorrow. So it's really hard to predict. But what is kind of what are you kind of looking at right now?
I think the most likely scenario, or the most likely day that includes the Mariners clinching on the field scenario, is actually tomorrow. just because, again, hypothetically, right? Let's say Baltimore wins today and you win today, then it's 2. Then tomorrow, that if Baltimore loses to the Yankees, you have that that 1, right? That magic number's down to 1. And if you win, you're in. So I think that's the most likely spot that they could perform that, because the issue is if you don't get it on Friday and the magic number is still 1, the Yankees and the Orioles play at 10 a.m. the following Saturday. You're going to know. Now the Orioles could beat the Yankees and then it's still in your court, ball's still in your court, but it just feels kind of like, are the Orioles going to beat the Yankees twice in a row? No, probably not, but it's possible. So again, there's about 1,000 different things. There's a scenario where, Seattle doesn't clinch until Monday. I mean, it's not likely at this stage, but it's out there. So I think for me, like the dream scenario, right? The Mariners get the 27th out and that's how they clinch. I think that is most likely to happen if it's going to happen that way on Friday. I think what ultimately is most likely to happen is I think Baltimore clinches for Seattle by losing to the Yankees at some point this weekend. There's just nothing you can do about that because they're playing back-to-back, 10 a.m. games in New York, and you're playing 3 hours later on Sunday and 8 hours later on Saturday. So unfortunately, it's not lining up to get that magical moment like we want. But if it was going to line up in that way, I actually think it's most likely to be Friday night. So if that's what you're hoping for, right? You want the Mariners to win tonight. You want Baltimore to win one of these next 2, either today, right now, or tomorrow before the Mariners take the field. That's what you're looking for. Mariners win 2 in a row. Baltimore wins one of these next 2. That's what you're looking for to have a shot. It's really your only shot to clinch by yourself, unless Baltimore beats the Yankees and you can do it Saturday night. But I think Friday night is probably, like, if I had to lay money on which way is most likely for the Mariners to clinch on the field, which day that's most likely to happen, that would be Friday. If you're asking me which day do I think is most likely they clinch, just in general, I'd probably say Saturday. So it's not lining up great for that. It's a bummer, but again, there's nothing you can do about it. But I would say Friday is tomorrow is probably your best shot.
Yeah. So the Orioles losing this afternoon or the Mariners losing tonight could significantly change things in one way or the other. So, again, if the Orioles win or the Mariners lose tonight, if at least one of those things happens, that lines up better for the Mariners to clinch on the field.
Yes.
Because then if the magic number stays at 2 exiting today, then Orioles lose tomorrow to the Yankees about probably an hour, before the final pitch in the Mariners game. So you would probably know at that point. Unfortunately, because the Orioles are not playing in the afternoon, like if you're trying to buy tickets quick, like just on a whim, that's not going to happen for you. But yeah, so it's kind of just one of those things where you just got to pick the game and hope. Yeah. It's pretty much like these people that have been trying to go to the Aaron Judge games right now,
right?
And, trying to get the home run. It's just you got to be lucky. You just got to hope that you pick the right day.
Got to be luckier than Frank Lasagna.
Frankie Lasagna. By the way, if the Mariners beat the Blue Jays in the postseason, well, if they face the Blue Jays in the postseason and beat the Blue Jays in the postseason, I'm taking my wife to Frankie Lasagna's restaurant.
There you go. Wear your Mariners cap with pride.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, by the way, I kind of feel like Seattle's going to end up with the 5, which is like worst case scenario, but like you take it, right? Like you're not spitting on the number 5, but like, I don't know. I just feel like Tampa's fading pretty fast, and Seattle, I don't know. Part of me has to believe that Seattle's going to play better here in the next few days. But they played pretty well last night, all things considered, which I'm sure we're about to talk about. But yeah, my strategies right now is I'm going to head over for the entire weekend and hope that the right opportunity comes for me to buy a ticket to a game where they clinch on the field, as opposed to probably watching MLB TV on my phone as I'm eating Dick's Drive-In or something like that. So that's my hope. But, it doesn't always work out like that. And obviously you're just happy to get in any way you can. But I really, really want to be at the stadium when they get the 27th out, and like that's one of those moments you talk about forever. And so I hope I get that opportunity, but Baltimore's not cooperating right now, so we'll see how it works out.
They are not playing particularly great baseball at the moment, which, I mean, good for the Mariners. But
I mean, you took that screenshot, right? And it was what, like all four wildcard teams are 4-6 in their last 10.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it's a race to mid, and nobody seems to want it. So.
Yeah, no one wants it. Everyone's having a mid off right now, and it's really weird, man. Because like you see some of the struggles that the Mariners are having, and it's like, okay, well that's just a Mariners thing. Well, not necessarily, because like you look at bullpens right now in baseball. Bullpens are awful. Ooh. It's like there's something contagious going around here with Major League bullpens right now. So. Yeah, hopefully the quality of play, just generally speaking around the league, ramps back up here, specifically for the Mariners. It would be nice to see them, rattle off a few wins here and go into the postseason on a heater. And last night, like you said, was, I would say, a pretty decent start to that. There were still, it wasn't great, but they were able to limit the Rangers to just one run. They win 3-1. They were able to get some timely hitting at times, and other times not as much. But yeah,
bullpen looked good.
Yep.
I mean, you can give him a pass because it's Martin Perez, and scoring 3 runs off of Martin Perez in 7 innings. It's not bad. Yeah. It's not bad. Yeah.
So we'll get into that in just a moment. We're also going to be talking about Eugenio Suarez. We're going to be talking about Luis Castillo's extension some more, and some comments that Jerry Dipoto had about that and all that. Coming up here, but real quick, folks, it's time for our favorite segment. It's time to talk about Blue Chew. Guys, we all know that confidence can take you far in life. That's especially true in the bedroom, especially when it's time to step up to the plate. That is where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. The process is simple as well. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And the best part, it's all done online, so no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. And Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. And with Blue Chew, men everywhere are excited to see the postman because, and say it with me, folks, when your package has arrived, your package has arrived. So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, and again, say it with me, folks, chew it and do it. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com. Promo code LOCKEDON to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. What an incredible sponsor Blue Chew is. And thank you so much for tuning in to the Locked On Mariners podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen. So Jerry Dipoto hopped on Brock and Salk today and had a few things that I want to talk about, but the first one, Eugenio Suarez is apparently playing third base tonight. Thoughts, Colby?
Surprising.
Yeah, that's one way to put it, to say the least.
Yeah, the way they made it sounded like there was just like no shot he was going to play third, at least in the regular season.
And then when you see like they're playing Ty France there at third, like
it's like they're prepping for Gino to not be able to. Maybe tonight is like the test, which doesn't seem like a good idea for me, but whatever. I have to trust their doctors.
Couldn't you test that out, like just during practice,
like playing catch? Like, hey, Gino, does it hurt? Go stand over at third base. Does it hurt? Okay, then no, we're done.
Yeah.
So, it's surprising. I mean, there's no way around it. It's certainly a, just the way that it made it sound was like we're not going to see him at third base this year, like period. And if he can't, like even if he's only able to play it for 6 or 7 innings or whatever, or only once or twice a week, like that's still incredibly helpful for the Mariners because he is your best third baseman. And again, it kind of lets you play matchup, and you can kind of pick and choose when you need Suarez to DH and when you need him to play third. I do wonder if maybe we might see Gino get a start at first base somewhere in the next, just because, maybe he can't make that throw consistently, but first basemen don't have to make a lot of throws.
And he had a first base glove on him in Oakland, right?
Sure. Yeah. And so I think he probably could do that. And so it's not ideal, but maybe maybe there's a situation where you need Gino, off the bench and you don't want to lose the DH. So you say, hey, Gino, can you play first base? And yeah, I can play first base. Or maybe it's, hey, my finger's a little, it's not great right now, but, we want to get Carlos Santana in the lineup or whatever, right? Jesse Winker, whoever it is. But the only way we can do that is if you're in the field. So can you play first base? I think we might see that. I wouldn't say it's likely, but I think it's definitely a possibility. But we'll see how tonight looks, right? I think first ground ball hit to Gino, everyone's going to hold their breath. And if the first ball sails on him a little bit, whew.
Yeah,
there's going to be panic at the disco. So it's just one of those things where you try your best to not have a panic attack every time something happens. But Gino is that important to the team. He's your right-handed power source. He had a great game yesterday. Didn't look too hesitant on those swings now, did he, Ty? So
no, he did not. He did not.
Boy, Ty, you just took so many L's yesterday.
All right, maybe though. Hold on, hear me out here.
Maybe you're Lane Gonzalez.
Maybe I was just what they needed to get going. They talked about, let's just do a show and go game. Show up late to the ballpark. We're not doing BP. We're not doing any sort of run throughs or anything like that. Just show up and let's play and all that stuff. Yeah, I think it was actually me who contributed to the win last night. I think it's what I said last night. It fired up the players and, of course, was everything that they needed to get going here. It was all me. Me.
Okay, well, I still say that Marco Gonzalez should get some at-bats over Mitch Haniger. So, by the way, I was so, Mitch had that sacrifice fly, the line drive yet, and I was like, that is a great sign. Straight back up the middle, hard hit, 100, and then he went and he struck out like he did. And I was like, well, there goes that optimism right out the window. I'm so desperate for Mitch Haniger to be good again that it's like, hey, that's a line drive straight up the box, RBI, that's perfect. And then I watched the rest of his at-bats and no.
Yeah. Andres Munoz had a great inning last night, by the way.
Yeah,
my God. That slider was, that was 80 grade slider right there.
He threw 6 in a row and he got 6 whiffs.
Simeon couldn't do anything with it. It was
you almost felt bad for him, but also screw him. So
yeah, he wanted the 7 years to not play in Seattle. So yeah,
you chose not to play in Seattle. That's your fault. I don't care.
You could be playing for the postseason right now, Marcus. I'm just saying.
You could. So it's just one of those things where I'm like, oh my God, what do you even do with that? But also, screw you, Marcus. That's what you get. You pay for you get paid to play for mediocrity, and that's what you get. You get to face greatness. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they were all 92 to 93 miles an hour too. There's just nothing. And then you have to keep in the back of your mind, is he going to pop 102 on me? Is he about to throw me 5 sliders in a row and then pop 102 at the top of the zone? Nope. Don't need to.
So I was watching the game last night with Maddie after we recorded Seattle Overload. Maddie F. Brown, my co-host on Seattle Overload. If you're a Seahawks fan, check it out. But he loves Andres Munoz. He's a massive Andres Munoz fan. He can't name most of the people on the team, to be fair, but he knows Andres Munoz, and he told me if he would buy any Mariners jersey, it would be an Andres Munoz jersey. He loves Andres Munoz.
What number is Andres Munoz even?
75.
Okay.
Which I feel like that's something that probably changes going into next year. I feel like 75 is just kind of a placeholder number, but we'll see. It's not a great baseball number, if we're being honest. Andres, maybe switch it up. Maybe go down about 50 digits. or so. So yeah. So Gino playing at third is surprising, like you said, to say the least. I didn't expect that whatsoever as well. I thought for sure like he's DHing, and the reason that they have Ty France playing so much third is because they're trying to get him ready. So I don't know. I guess this is team doctors basically said like he's good to go. He can at least try it. See what happens. So just hopefully he doesn't re-aggravate it. In the field tonight, and we'll see how that goes. And if it's not great, then look, I think that they have at least a plan in place to survive without him having to play third. It's not particularly great because Ty France is not
is Ty France.
Yeah, the plan is not. Yeah, the plan is not fantastic. But they do have a plan. They do have a plan. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so let's talk about the other thing that Jerry talked about on the radio today. He was talking about the Luis Castillo extension and how that kind of came to be, and he basically, I'm going to paraphrase here. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but he, just to paraphrase, he basically said, we were talking to, or we reached out to Castillo's agent about a potential extension right before we were about to finalize the Julio deal. And the agent, got back to them and said, like, I'll talk to Luis. And then about 48 hours later, after the Julio deal got done and was reported, Castillo's agent got back to Jerry and was like, Luis is pumped up. He wants to get this done right now. Let's do it. He wants to be here. He sees that this team wants to win, and he's just excited about it and just wants to get this done and be here for the prime of his career, basically. So you and I talked about this on our Patreon show yesterday, and how these extensions and how the Julio extension may change how the rest of the league and how free agents potentially and just other players view Seattle as a destination. And, we talked about how, rare this is for a guy that had only been here for about 7 weeks to decide, what? And, and again, not have any connection to the city, to the organization really, and go, what? This is, again, where I want to spend the rest of my prime as a Major League Baseball pitcher. So that's huge, right? Like, what is this, now kind of going off of what Jerry has said today, what does this say to you about just this team as a destination for other players that might want to come here as free agents this winter and beyond?
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to say yesterday's Patreon episode is free, available on our Patreon, patreon.com
/
control the zone. Yeah, go check it out. It's a free episode. We don't do those that often, but I think you guys will enjoy it because we did talk a lot of free agency and a lot of off-season stuff. But yeah, we did mention that Julio is an attraction, for lack of a better word. He is a human being, but he is also an attraction, not just to fans, but to
and not just
players.
To me.
Yes,
not just to me,
or the other ladies of Seattle, but. It is okay. They shared a moment. Okay.
We made eye contact, guys. It was in Toronto. He looked at me. He smiled at me. We had a connection there, folks. We had a connection there, folks. We have something special, Julio and I. Something that cannot be explained on this show.
Well, you have 18 years to make that work, so there you go. But no, we did talk about the impact of Julio, and when we talked about the Luis Castillo extension on this show earlier this week, we mentioned that this is possibly, we might have just seen the first quantifiable impact of the Julio extension based on when Castillo actually signed this, because we assumed that it was going to be in the winter or maybe even leak into next year, but he did it really early compared to what we thought in season, which is highly unusual. And we had guessed that, maybe this is the first quantifiable impact of the Julio Rodriguez extension. And then you read this today and it sure seems like that was the case. Like, the Mariners are serious. And when you kind of look at the whiteboard of reasons not to play for the Seattle Mariners, a lot of them don't exist anymore. You have a beautiful ballpark. You have a young superstar to build around in Julio. You have 3 or 4 legitimate all-stars who are just starting their major league career. Kirby, Cal, Gilbert. You have really good role players like Ty France and Eugenio Suarez. You have this elite bullpen. And now you kind of start knocking off all those reasons. Well, they don't win. They're winning. Well, they haven't been to the playoffs in forever. They're going to the playoffs this year. Well, are they willing to spend money? They've committed like $750 million to 3 players in the last year. Like, well, can they win the World Series with you? Yeah, we can. And so really the only thing left on like the whiteboard of doubt is the travel. And I know travel is a big thing for a lot of people, like people like Ty and I, but for major leaguers, when winning and money is there, travel's way down the list. So yes, there are going to be people who just don't want to play in Seattle still. That's going to happen. There's nothing you can do about that. But the other reasons, like, well, will Seattle spend money? Yes. Can Seattle win the World Series? Yep. Are they going to be a consistent playoff contender? Yeah. Do they have players to put around me so I'm not trying to do everything by myself? Yep.
Yeah.
Are they locked in long term? Yep. They are. So every reason for doubt kind of gets wiped away. Every reason that the Mariners can control started to get wiped away with the Julio extension. I mean, it happened before then, but to other players like outside of the organization and those who aren't paying attention to the Mariners, the Julio extension was like putting our foot down. We're in. Like we're coming for it. And if you don't want to play here, then you're the one that's missing out.
Yeah.
You want to play for us. We don't need you. You need us. Like the tides have shifted. Amongst the players.
And you and I talked about this yesterday, how, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be in the Aaron Judge sweepstakes, but it maybe opens the possibility where he actually would be open to coming to Seattle, right? Where players of that caliber might actually consider you.
Maybe.
If you're willing to come to the table. Now, I don't think the Mariners are even going to seriously like go after Aaron Judge or someone like that. But, we were talking about Freddie Freeman as well, with, last year, a lot of people, a lot of Mariners fans wanted the Mariners to go after Freddie Freeman. They of course didn't, because that wasn't possible. But now that, you have a playoff berth under your belt, that now that you're not necessarily the cellar dweller of Major League Baseball, and you're not just a laughing stock of Major League Baseball, and you're actually showing, with results that you are serious about this, that maybe, if someone like a Freddie Freeman was on the market this year, that would actually be like a 1%, 2% possibility, so that just really what this does is open doors for all of these certain possibilities. And again, like you said, there are other things that the Mariners cannot change, that are not within the Mariners' control, that is going to turn people off, that is going to turn players off from the city of Seattle, from just the location in general, because, geography, right? Like, that's just, it is what it is, that you're naturally going to travel the furthest distance every single year for any Major League Baseball team because of just where you're located. And now with the fact that you're going to play all 29 other teams every single year, now the travel is going to get even worse, naturally. So, so, that still has to be taken into account here. But at the end of the day, you're showing that you're serious about winning as an organization. You are taking care of your own. You are willing to go out and trade pieces to go get, elite talent like a Luis Castillo. And you're willing to not only go out and acquire those kinds of guys via the trade market, you're willing to lock them down long term as well. And so players are going to notice that. Players are going to take notice of that, and they're going to take notice of the fact that you have still one of the best farm systems in baseball, even though that it's taken a great hit with Kirby graduating and Julio graduating, all those guys. Still a really, really strong farm system, a really healthy farm system that is still going to pump in talent over the next few years to the Major League rosters. So the Major League roster is not only going to get better outside of the organization, but from within as well. And then you just talk about the growth of some of these guys. Julio hasn't even, for as good as Julio has been, Julio still hasn't even reached his ceiling. And for as good as George Kirby has been, George Kirby hasn't reached the ceiling. Logan Gilbert may, there might still be more in Logan Gilbert's game as well. Like, you have so many pieces that still have so much room to grow, that it's just the upside in Seattle is really unmatched. There are very few organizations that can match the upside that Seattle has as a destination. If you want to win and you want to get paid, and hopefully John Stanton and folks are willing to fork over the money for guys that are outside of the organization. They've already, they've of course done it for guys within the organization, but outside of the organization, on top of the Robbie Rays and et cetera, will they continue to spend? That is the question, but they theoretically have all the money in the world to spend right now. They're still very far off of where they have historically been in terms of yearly payroll. So if you want to get paid and you want to compete for a World Series, it's hard to top what Seattle has to offer right now. So that's really exciting. That should excite Mariners fans for the offseason to come, whenever that does come. And hopefully that doesn't come for a while, right? Hopefully the Mariners make a run to the World Series, as unlikely as it is. But, hopefully we don't have to talk about this until November. But once the offseason does come, I think it's going to be a very, very exciting time. I think the possibilities are not necessarily endless, but there is a lot more opportunity for the Mariners to get better than I think in any year over the last 20 years.
Yeah. Even if you just look at like where they're at payroll wise, right? Like they're in great shape still, even with these big contracts that they've signed. Mm. They can easily add, a couple more. Like it's just not going to be that big of a deal. So the Mariners, I don't think the Mariners have ever been in a better spot as a franchise. And that includes the 90s when they had Griffey and A-Rod and Randy. Like, was that team more talented? Well, I mean, I just named, 4 Hall of Famers. So yeah, probably. But we have an ownership group that I guess you can say is willing to spend. I'm still a little on the fence, but obviously what they've done lately is a great sign, right? There's no denying that's a great sign. They have a general manager who knows what he's doing. They have a player development system that knows what it's doing. And they have so much momentum that, they can build. And I think the possibility is there. I don't think the Mariners are ever going to be the Dodgers, right? Like, it's just never going to happen. And that's fine. You don't need to be the Dodgers or the Yankees or the Red Sox. But I think what you can be is I think you can be the Cardinals. I think you could be the Cardinals West. I think you could be the Atlanta Braves. I think you could be the San Francisco Giants. Those teams won World Series. Those teams have all won World Series more recently than the Yankees. So I think you can be that type of team, that, kind of like upper mid market team that just consistently, because they know how to develop and because they make shrewd moves and because they're not afraid to spend. Maybe they don't spend on the mega free agents, but they're not afraid to spend. You look at what St. Louis is doing. They traded for Paul Goldschmidt in his contract. They traded for Arenado in his contract. Like, they will spend money, but they're not going to go out and they're not going to give, Albert Pujols $300 million, even though that's their guy. They're like, nope, we're fine. We'll replace Albert Pujols because we're not going to give mega money to those guys, but they still spend, right? It's not about, you're not cheap because you don't give Aaron Judge $300 million, right? You might be cheap because you don't want to give Brandon Nimmo 5 and 100 instead of 5 and 90 to get that over the finish line. But okay, like if that happens, then call them out on it. But they're not cheap if they don't give, Dansby Swanson $215 million when they think he's worth 170. That's not cheap. That's smart. So the momentum is all lining up really well. Hopefully they get into play. Well, they're going to get in the playoffs. Hopefully they can make some noise in the playoffs too, because I'm telling you what, if this team goes to like a CS or something like that, or even if they push, say, the Yankees to 5 games, the momentum we have now is only going to go up even more because every playoff game you play is national exposure. It's players who haven't even thought about you for a decade all of a sudden going, wow, I want to be a part of that. I want to play in that ballpark. I want to play in that energy. I want to play with Julio, who's balling on national TV. It all helps.
And also, think about it. Like, if you're able to make a run like close to the World Series, it's like, well, we can do this without you. Now think about what we could be with you. That's a hell of a sales pitch right there. That's like,
exactly.
If we had you on this run, we could have gone to the World Series. We could have won a championship. Think about being able to say that to like Brandon Nimmo, right? Or Xander Bogaerts or Trey Turner or whoever, right? Like, look, we got the money. We can put our money where our mouth is, and we have this great opportunity for you to get a ring. Like that's kind of the double whammy here that not a lot of teams have to offer right now. So that kind of puts you in a unique position. That puts you in that upper echelon of teams where, yeah, you know, you're not going to go get Aaron Judge, right? You're not going to go get that guy, mostly because of the yearly commitment that I think it's going to take with Judge. But now I think this comes to a point where, like, if someone asks us, like, hey, could the Mariners sign Aaron Judge? I'm not going to laugh at it. Like, I don't think it'll happen, but, like, it's not one of those situations where I'm like, that's unrealistic. Like, get out of here with that. They could do it. They could do it. I don't think they will, but they could do that. You know, things change. When you're a team like this, when you're a playoff team, when you're a team that is well on the rise, when you have all these pieces, all these things that we just listed, theoretically speaking, you can go get anyone that you want. So this is a very exciting time to be a Mariners fan. And like you said, I agree with you. I think this is the best that this organization has ultimately been set up, because it's not, this is what you and I have been talking about on this podcast and all of our other podcasts for the last 4 or so years that you and I have been, you know, talking Mariners together, that what Jerry Dipoto and company were building is something that can be sustained and built upon over a decade's worth of time rather than a small 2 to 3 year window. And this, even right now, with how emotional this season has been and how, you know, all the accomplishments that the Mariners are going to have once the season finally comes to an end, whenever that is, that's still only the beginning. And so, you know, like, Julio Rodriguez is 21 years old. He won't turn 22 until December. And that guy is going to get a lot better. A lot better than what he is right now, which is still a superstar. And so, and you have him for 17 years, like you said, he's an attraction. That's going to help you get guys. Guys are going to want to play with Julio, especially if he becomes like the face of baseball. I mean, look, we've seen it time and time again with other players around the league. Guys want to play with good players. So that helps you a lot. All right. We are well over time, but I enjoyed talking about this. So, you know, I have no issue going over time, but we might get yelled at by the
better not rat us out, guys.
Exactly. All right. So that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on Locked On Mariners, and little programming note, part 2 of our what the Mariners making the playoffs means to you will be out tomorrow. And we might be doing a bonus episode on top of that. I'm going to be interviewing Gary Hill later today. So that might come out tomorrow or maybe Saturday. We'll see. And we're also trying to figure out what to do if the Mariners do clinch this weekend and what we'll be doing for a show and all that stuff. So keep your eyes peeled. But this is probably going to be a little bit of a bigger week for us, obviously, with everything that's going on. So there might be more shows to come beyond tomorrow. So be on the lookout for all that stuff. But for Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dane Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, CANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen. Now make your second listen the Locked On MLB podcast. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. And with that, have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.